Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com. That is T Mosso at the1916company.com for pricing. Today, we discuss the second generation Lange Söhne Lange 1 time zone. This is the watch that was refreshed for the 2020 model year. The original time zone came out in 2005. Despite being of the latest generation, this watch keeps the larger and original Grand Lange 1 case, which is 41.9 millimeters in diameter, and here it is in white gold. You can also see that some packing stickers are still on the watch, so the owner did not really enjoy this. And I guess the flip side for the next owner is that they're getting a watch that's as close to the boutique experience as you can find with nary a mark. So, 41.9 millimeters in diameter in white gold, 11.5 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 50 millimeters. And it has a broad for Lange 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. So, as a large watch, it has a nice proportional stance. On my wrist, it's substantial. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I'm going to opine that on this, the larger and original Grand Lange 1 case, you want a wrist my size or larger. So I could wear this fine, but if my wrist were just a little bit narrower, we would start to look at the encroachment of the lug on the edge of my wrist, and that's always a no-go when you've got lugs hanging out over the edge. That said, it's not a thick watch, and it does have a domed bezel, so it'll slide easily under a cuff. The strap, super high quality. Take a look. Large rectangular scale, symmetrical scale alligator leather, always the most expensive cut or close to the most expensive cut of the beast. Medium brown with a semi-gloss finish. You can see it has a folded edge, a little bit of stuffing or bolstering to give it volume, and a monotone stitch. On the bottom we have calfskin. You can see a brand new Lange factory strap, no crimping, no gouging. A very rare sight on Lange watches. A full folding clasp, and you can see this is a new design. For a long time, their folding clasps were a single fold. The double fold is a little bit easier to live with, less likely to pinch a small wrist when it is being closed, probably why Lange is moving in that direction. Now, both the buckle and the case are made of what's known as gray gold, or a white gold 18-karat alloy that is white all the way through and never needs to be rhodium plated. It is, in short, the good stuff. So double folding clasp, that is usually an upcharge option on a Lange watch. They generally just come with pin buckles. You can see the B, that's the manufacturer in Ticino, Switzerland, Brogioli, which is why this German watch has a Swiss hallmark on its gold. And then you can see on the case, CO, Centror, which I believe is a case maker in Switzerland owned by Audemars Piguet. And I believe FTOR, which is owned by Richemont, is the other case maker, along with SUG, three case makers used by Lange. And again, that's why you have a Swiss hallmark on this German watch. So the case is relatively simple but attractive. Not every Lange case features differential finish, but this one does. So the mid case is satin finished, but the bezel, the lugs, and the case back are polished. You can also see that one of the reasons the watch reads is so flat on the wrist is because the case back is somewhat stepped in, so it looks thinner than it really is. A feature of Lange watches since the original models in the modern era, in the fall of 1994, we have these stepped lugs that have a little bit of a notch in their profile, so they're not perfectly integrated into the case band. One of the co-founders of the modern Lange, German watch executive Gunther Blümlein, believed the company needed a distinctive styling trait on its cases, and so the stepped lug was it. The bezel is polished and domed. And then we get to the dial, which, though black, is made of sterling silver and then blackened with galvanizing. The indices, the numerals, the hands, as well as the frame for the date and the index for the world time, or I guess we'll call it a geographic function, but all of this dial furniture is made of white gold, so it cannot tarnish, oxidize, or fade over time. We have a hand for the power reserve up and down, twin mainspring barrels, manual wind gives you a 72-hour power reserve, and it says that right there. Now we have what I've called a geographic time system because it's a lot like that used by Jaeger-LeCoultre. So it's somewhere between a dual time and a world time. Here's our primary time zone. Here's our reference time zone. And the time you see on this dial is the time in that city. The little white gold index points to the current city of reference. And if you see a little red, we'll call it inner index. That means you're looking at a city that uses winter and summertime. So they have the idea of springing ahead and falling back. Now you can see as I change the reference city, the second time zone will do all the math for me. It will also remove the little red index if the city that I'm looking at does not use differential summer and winter time. There's also a little blue indicator to let you know whether you're looking at day or night. In fact, we have an AM/PM indicator, that blue semicircle, for both local time and reference time. And so I describe this as a sort of geographic system because the world time city reference ring does not move, but it is mobile and it affects the second time zone. So in some ways it works like a dual time, in some ways it works like a world time. You can see right here, London is still GMT, but Berlin replaces the conventional Paris or Geneva city marker that you'll find on Swiss watches. Okay, what else can we see? Well, you can see there's a very fine concentric pattern to these subdials, which is a beautiful detail. And then we've got a panorama datum, or a big date, that you can change using a button or a trigger up at 11 o'clock. If you wish to decouple the reference time and the local time, you pull the crown out, you press down the world time reference ring, and then you make your adjustments to the local time. Notice how the reference time is not moving here? That's how you make that work. Remember, it only works in one direction. You have to turn your local time zone counterclockwise. That's how that works. You would think it would break the watch, but that's how you're supposed to decouple these two things, holding the button, pulling the crown, and turning it. Flip it all over. You can see we have a big, beautiful German movement. So again, manual wind, 2 barrels, 72-hour power reserve. Couple things to note here. Adjusted in 5 positions, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. It has a 3 hertz beat rate, and all this is water resistant down to 30 meters. Pivots on 38 joules. You can see the world time system features an elaborately finished floral or banknote scroll individual bridge with wheels comparable to what you would see on vintage German pocket watches of the 19th century. You can see there's a lovely little flower motif around the screw sinks on both this bridge and this bridge. And of course, we have 2 freehand engraved structures. This is done with a burin and eye-hand coordination, so no two will be exactly alike. You can see that the beveling is insane. Even on something like an access cover for service, you can see that that little access cover has been beveled. Now, what can I tell you? Well, we do have stop seconds, which I should probably mention. You can set the watch to a reference time by stopping the movement. Taking a look, a lot of elements drawn from historic German pocket watches, starting with the 3/4 style bridge, one giant plate over the barrels and the drivetrain. Then there's German silver, which is this golden material used for the bridges and plates. It's not silver, it's a nickel copper zinc alloy, and it is very corrosion resistant, though the copper gives it that golden hue. And over time, though it won't corrode, it will darken and become more intense. We have set nation on the wheels, beveling on the sides of the bridges. We have a black polished cap, the cover to the escape wheel cock. And then if you look carefully, you can see that steel component features a sharp inward angle where the bevels meet, a difficult thing to do on any material, but very tough on steel. Note that we have both polished screws and fire blued screws. So we have little polished screws, but we also have blued screws. And you can see that we have jewels set in golden chaton cups, another pocket watch era flourish, because back then it was difficult to directly precision press a jewel into a bridge or a plate, so it would be done into a precision cut golden cup, which would then be placed into the bridge or the plate and secured by screws. We have a black polished swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, and then we have engine turning or perlage on the base plate with snailing on the bridge for the escapement below the balance. It's the best of the best. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.